Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take insights and try to turn them into actionable wisdom for you. Today we're diving into a really fascinating brand new source, The Playground Principles by Barry C. Kleiman. Basically, the book argues we've kind of lost something vital from our childhood playgrounds, and these simple universal truths, they're maybe more relevant than ever for how we connect, lead, and succeed as adults. So our mission today is to dig into those timeless principles and see how they apply to your world. Whether that's like navigating a boardroom, leading a team, or maybe just connecting better with your family.
It's a really compelling idea, isn't it? Kleiman, he calls himself a 74-year-old kid from a Philly playground, which I love. But he's got decades of experience in executive search, coaching, and he's saying these simple rules from the asphalt court, the meritocracy of the playground. He calls it, they offer this powerful lens on how we interact. He talks about his own childhood playground, the desert. No benches, no water, no parents, no coaches, nothing. Just kids, a ball, and this intense focus on, well, merit. Could you get picked? Could you stay on the court? Were you someone others wanted on their team? He thinks those questions, those dynamics, are just as vital today.
Absolutely. That really resonates. And he kicks things off with a great story, doesn't he? That classic youth sports anecdote. The coach trying to explain teamwork to a 9-year-old, only to find out the real issue is this overbearing grandmother in the stands. It's funny, but it also really highlights how much things have changed from his desert playground days. He flat out says those pickup games taught him more about real leadership, fairness, character, more than a lot of the boardroom stuff he's seen since.
Right. And what's cool is he doesn't just lean on nostalgia. It's not just back in my day. He actually went out and formally asked dozens of people across the basketball world, we're talking former NBA players, famous college coaches, you name it. He asked them about the implied rules, the behaviors, the unwritten creeds of their own playgrounds growing up. And he found these just striking commonalities, things that popped up again and again. It really showed how these playground principles cut across time and place. So those chats weren't just sentimental. They kind of gave him the blueprint. They showed how playgrounds were these little laboratories for building connection, learning leadership, developing character, creating a culture, really.
Exactly. And the core, he says, is this. On the playground, merit was the metric. Simple as that. You couldn't just ride yesterday's reputation. You had to re-earn your spot every single day through your presence, how you played, and how you treated people. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That the same basic systems that worked on the playground, they still govern how we connect effectively as humans. Okay, so let's unpack this core idea of authentic connection. Kleiman says it's way more than, just shaking hands or getting likes on social media. And he uses that legendary sports story to kick things off. Michael Jordan passing to Steve Kerr. Game 6, 1997 finals. The winning shot.
Yeah, but the really juicy part is the backstory, right? Because 2 years before that, 1995, Jordan actually sucker punched Kerr in practice, like full on, black eye, bloody nose, the works. But instead of, ending things, it actually transformed their relationship. Kerr stood up to MJ, showed self-respect, and that earned him Jordan's respect, like deep respect, and Jordan. He gained someone he knew he could trust, absolutely trust when the pressure was highest. Kleiman even suggested help Jordan find a much-needed level of self-connection. So you go from this conflict to a championship moment. It shows that real connection needs honesty, resilience, mutual respect. You've got to be willing to compete, sure, but also have a way to talk through the tough stuff to build real trust.
Wow, that backstory changes everything about how you see that shot. Conflict forging connection. That's deep. So what are the fundamental principles Kleiman pulls out of that specific dynamic?
Well, he boils those winning elements down into some core principles. Things like connect, which for him is like sharing the ball. Communicate effectively, basically. Say what you mean what you say. Simple, but hard. Make your teammates better. Earn respect. And that's through authentic, consistent action, not just talk. And commit to improving yourself, always. And he really hammers home that these are the same principles, many of us first bumped into in those childhood games, still just as vital.
Right. And this leads to a big question for you listening.
Yeah.
What game are you actually playing? Kleiman insists this isn't just philosophy, it's practical. Like on the playground, you had to know the rules, right? Playing to 21, call your own fouls, you needed clarity. He connects this to Steve Jobs coming back to Apple in 97. Remember, after he'd been pushed out, Jobs shifted the whole question. It wasn't, is this good enough anymore? It became, does this delight our customers? And crucially, what's our soul? That clarity, that focus, it just reignited everything, permeated the whole company. Product design, culture.
Yeah.
And, we know how that turned out. World's richest company.
And that idea of soul, Kleiman basically uses it interchangeably with culture.
Okay.
He brings in Peter Drucker, right? That classic line, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Kleiman's take is that culture is the heart and soul of any sort of organization, period. And he argues that the organizations that really thrive, the ones that grow like crazy, it's because their leadership is absolutely committed, resolute in creating effective communication systems to build those winning cultures.
So if you zoom out, it's all about optimization, isn't it? Making the most of what you've got. And he gives us a tool for this, Dr. Edith Eger's 4 questions. Super simple, but really potent. What do you want to happen? Why do you want it to happen? What's the very next step you'll take? And critically, when will you take that step?
Exactly. It's so practical. Think about like a tough project at work. What do you want? Successful launch. Why? Client happy. Team grows. Next step. Define roles. When? End of the week. Boom. It cuts through the noise. And Kleiman says, apply these to your game. Leader, spouse, parent, teammate. Whatever your core is.
Okay, so that's connecting externally. But then Kleiman pivots, right, to that crucial internal connection. He gives a whole chapter to Dr. Stephen Covey's idea from 7 Habits. Private victories precede public victories. Covey saw all these outwardly successful people who were still struggling inside this deep need for personal congruence and effectiveness. Kleiman frames it as a kind of failure to communicate with yourself.
Yeah, and the example he uses to illustrate this, Maya Moore, it's incredibly powerful. Sports Illustrated called her the greatest winner in the history of women's basketball. I mean, 4 WNBA titles, 2 Olympic golds, just dominant. But Kleiman argues her real monument of existence, her defining legacy, wasn't on the court. It was her decision in 2019 to just step away from basketball, walk away at her peak. Why? To help free Jonathan Irons, a man she'd met back in 2007. He'd been in prison for 23 years for a shooting, but there was like 0 physical evidence. It was a wrongful conviction. Moore put her own money, her time, her focus into funding the legal team that eventually got him freed. That act of justice, driven by this deep personal conviction, it's Covey's principle perfectly embodied, isn't it? Personal clarity, that inner work before the massive public impact.
Connection with self is oxygen. That line really lands. And then he throws out this fun, kind of introspective exercise for you, the listener. What nickname would you give yourself? You know, like Connie Hawkins was the hawk, Earl Monroe was the pearl. Something that helps you identify directly with the game you're playing. Kleiman uses a 74-year-old kid from a Philly playground. I don't know, podcast navigator. Doesn't quite have the same ring, but it makes you think.
Yeah, but it's more than just like a cool name, right? It's about identity, accountability. That nickname becomes your personal standard, your daily reminder of the game you chose, the rules you set to yourself. It's like your personal contract, earned and tested constantly. Are you walking the talk? Do your actions match that identity? He contrasts this with people like Buffett, Oracle of Omaha, or Schultz, Jobs, Gates. Their power wasn't just a label. It was built on crystal clear communication systems, validated by execution. And he brings back the 4 questions here, too. Use them to look at your private victories, define your personal brand. Ask yourself, what internal battles, if you won them, would make the biggest difference in your game?
Okay, so you get that self-connection dialed in. Then what? How do you master connecting with others? Kleiman points to Bill Russell, basketball legend, 13 seasons, 11 championships. I mean, that number is just staggering. Russell's core belief: a great locker room is a place where you have trust. You've got to be able to go into a game and know that everyone on your team has your back. Kleiman says Russell's whole aura, his brand, just commanded respect. And as he puts it, disputing 11 rings is tough. Right. It speaks volumes. And that locker room code Russell built, you see echoes of it everywhere in great leadership. Think Mary Barra at GM during that huge recall crisis, her first move. No more hiding problems, total transparency, changed the system. Or Reed Hastings at Netflix, deliberately creating a culture of radical candor where being authentic was actually protected. Satya Nadella at Microsoft, completely shifting the culture so people felt like their teammates truly had their backs. The message Kleiman keeps hitting is consistent. Trust and connection. They don't just happen, they're built, brick by brick. Small, consistent actions, full stop. And a huge playground principle here: share the ball, make people around you better. It reminds me of that Jack Welch quote: before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. Okay, so taking that further, how do you actually raise the bar? Create that sustainable edge, whatever your field. Kleiman brings in Peter Senge here in his book, The Fifth Discipline, specifically the idea of systems thinking. Senge says you cannot force commitment. What you can do: you nudge a little here, inspire a little there, and provide a role model. Your primary influence is the environment you create. It's subtle but powerful.
And this leads to a really practical question. What do you do when the system isn't working? When things break down? Kleiman introduces the playground classic. My bad. Just owning it. Accountability. Humility. He tells this great story about Coach Nick Saban back in '98. Michigan State. Struggling team. Facing this unbeaten Ohio State powerhouse. Saban had this realization. His usual style, very transactional, focus only on results. What have you done for me lately? It wasn't working. It was creating pressure, not performance. So, on a psychiatrist's advice, believe it or not, he changed his approach completely. He told the team, forget the score, forget the outcome, just focus on one play at a time. Go out there, just go have fun and compete. And guess what? Michigan State won. Upset the #OneTeam. How? By changing the leadership system, shifting from outcome focus to process focus. That's Senge's system's thinking right there. The leader seeing the system itself needed fixing, and that his mindset was either opening doors or closing them for everyone else.
Right. And Senge's ideas, Kleiman boils them down to 3 key things. 1, hold your vision, but see reality clearly. That gap, that creative tension is what drives growth. 2, collaboration is essential for any kind of deep, profound change. You can't do it alone. And 3, maybe the biggest, the core leadership strategy is simple. Be a model. Like Nadella admitting his own mistakes at Microsoft to signal a culture shift. Your actions, your standards, they speak way louder than your words. So for you listening, it's about using those 4 questions again. Articulate your vision. Understand your why. Identify that next best action, like Barr saying, speak up when you see a problem to change GM's culture, and commit to a win.
Yeah, and connecting this to the bigger picture, it's about really understanding the processes underneath the results. Kleiman even brings in W. Edwards Deming, the father of total quality management. Deming saw organizations like a body, right? The health of the whole thing depends on every part working well together, communicating effectively. It just reinforces those core ideas. Connection with self is oxygen. Connection is currency of the highest regard. And, crucially, the difference between occasional success and consistent excellence lies in understanding the underlying processes. It's not luck.
So how does all this stuff, all these principles, actually show up in your unique way of doing things? Kleiman really emphasizes that connection happens because of how we communicate. And he says every master of connection has built their own unique system to make it work. He uses that killer quote from Chris Voss, the former FBI hostage negotiator. Your communication system is perfectly designed to give you the outcomes you're achieving. Oof.
Right. That one makes you stop and think. How would you describe your communication system? Kleiman pushes you. Do you tend to react or respond? He pulls in Daniel Kahneman here. Thinking fast and slow. System 1 is reacting quick, gut feeling, emotional. System 2 is responding slower, more deliberate, logical, intentional. And then he asks, do you see yourself as an illuminator? Someone who's curious, asks questions, tries to understand, makes people feel seen, interested in their whys, really listens? Or are you more of a diminisher, more self-focused, quick to label, maybe making others feel a bit unseen or unheard? He says, use the 4 questions to consciously design your system. Whether you want to build trust, deepen family ties, lead with more clarity, start by just auditing your current habits, honestly.
Illuminator versus diminisher. That's such a useful frame. And speaking of things hitting you later, Kleiman tells this funny story about being a dentist and realizing he'd written this whole book on playground principles, but missed maybe the most fundamental one. He quotes Pat Riley, no rebounds. No rings.
Yeah. And rebounding, the way Kleiman talks about it, it's not just, grabbing the ball after a missed shot. It's a preemptive mindset. It's about positioning yourself for recovery before the failure even happens. It's seeing setbacks not just as problems, but as opportunities waiting to be grabbed. He says the rebounder gets more renewed opportunities much sooner. They're ready for them. And the examples he gives are incredible. Champions of the rebound, he calls them. Stephen Curry literally rebuilding his body mechanics to overcome ankle issues and silence doubters. Bruce Springsteen channeling personal darkness, depression into music that creates this massive collective connection. And Mulcahy at Xerox, staring down $17 billion in debt, showing fierce tenacity, cutting costs, but crucially protecting R&D for the future. And maybe the ultimate example, Nelson Mandela, emerging from 27 years in prison, not seeking vengeance, but modeling this incredible standard of forgiveness, turning profound personal suffering into national healing.
Wow. It really makes you reflect, doesn't it? Are you just reacting when things go wrong, or are you already positioned to rebound? Do your rebounds just help you personally? Or do they somehow connect with others going through similar struggles? Do you just survive tough times, or do you actually convert them into advantages? And can you hold on to your highest standards when everything around you is giving you an excuse to lower them? He brings back the 4 questions again. To help you plan your rebounds. Choose battles big enough to matter, but small enough to win. Figure out next steps, maybe building a stronger support network. And set a when, because, as he says, someday usually means never. The ultimate playground principle, he says. It's simply a life well played. Okay, so this leads us to the final, maybe most challenging principle of all. It's framed by a Groucho Marx quote, "Now tell me what you know," which Kleiman brilliantly links to that classic LinkedIn interview question. Tell me about yourself. It's not just about knowing things. It's about being able to articulate your wisdom. Wisdom you already have, or wisdom you've gained from applying these principles. The real question is, can you transform your experiences, both the wins and the losses, into insights you can actually share with others?
Yeah, because the implication is huge. Knowledge unarticulated is difficult to share, and wisdom not shared creates a highly dysfunctional culture. If you can't explain it, you can't pass it on. He keeps coming back to 3 core fundamentals. Voss's quote about your communication system getting you the results you have now. That powerful idea. Connection with self is oxygen. And Maya Moore's definition of a winner. A master of preparation, a master of connection, extremely competitive and have really high standards for themselves and the people around them. He says these 3 things form a kind of triangle, a structure, a system you can use to check your own game right now, in real time. Master these fundamentals, he argues, and you will get better outcomes. It's almost inevitable.
So what does this all boil down to for you listening in your day-to-day? Kleiman's final charge is simple. Play the right way. Live your principles. Build trust. Contribute meaningfully to the team, the family, the community you care about. And he gives some really practical first steps for improving communication. He suggests starting small. Just focus on one relationship.
Exactly. And how do you actually shift from reacting to responding? He offers a really simple technique. Just build in a 3-second pause. Before you reply in an important conversation, just pause. Count to 3 silently. It's amazing what that little space can do. How do you become more of an illuminator, less of a diminisher? Make it a rule. Ask at least one genuine question before you jump in with your perspective. Just one. And how do you share the ball more effectively? Change your ratio. For every statement you make, try asking one question that invites the other person to share more deeply. He echoes Voltaire here. Judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. Our questions really do reveal our values, our curiosity, our genuine interest.
That's such practical advice. And he also pulls in some wisdom from Dale Carnegie, right? How to win friends and influence people. Simple things that work. Be genuinely interested and sincere. Ask about them. Notice something specific and comment on it. Give honest appreciation. Start conversations in a friendly way. And maybe the hardest one, let the other person do most of the talking.
Right, because the core belief driving all this is that connection isn't some magic talent. It's a skill that can be developed, strengthened, and mastered over time. His realistic improvement doesn't happen overnight, but it happens through consistent practice, honest feedback, and the willingness to adjust your game when something isn't working. Just ask Maya Moore. He even offers resources in the book, connection audit tools, practice exercises, an icebreaker cheat sheet. He does workshops, coaching. He quotes Confucius. By 3 methods, we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. Practice matters. Perfect practice makes perfect, he adds.
Wow. This has been just a fantastic deep dive into the playground principles. Really rich stuff. From Jordan and Kerr turning conflict into trust, to Maya Moore's incredible act of conviction, from the simple power of my bad to the profound idea of rebounding. It's so clear these aren't childish ideas at all. They're deeply human. Kleiman wraps it up with that Mark Cuban quote, "Time is the most valuable resource we don't own." He connects it to Oliver Burkeman's 4,000 Weeks. That's dark reality of our limited time here.
Yeah.
He says that's what really pushed him to write this book now.
Yeah, and what's striking is, for Kleiman, realizing time is finite wasn't about pulling back. It was the opposite. It was a call to connect more, to share what he's learned. He says, gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a behavior. It's showing up fully and sharing what I've learned. He quotes Springsteen again. We learn more from a 3-minute record than we ever learned in school. Kleiman extends that to the playground. Those lessons stick.
So as we close out, here's a final thought for you to consider. The book uses that Phil Jackson quote, borrowing from Kipling's Law of the Jungle. The strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. So if connection is currency, and connection with self is oxygen, what's one small, immediate step you can take, maybe even today, to move away from being a lone wolf and truly start to share the ball? To consciously invest in the quality of your connections, knowing every moment is a chance to live your values.
And maybe ask yourself this too. Will you make the choice to play the right way, to live by your principles, build that trust, contribute to your pack? Especially knowing Kleiman's final warning. Your competition isn't really other people or organizations. You're competing with the time you kill, the ill will you create, the knowledge you neglect to learn, the connections you fail to build, and whatever God you curse for your bad luck. It's about competing against your own potential.
So let's bring it back to Groucho Marx one last time. Now tell me what you know. Yeah. But maybe more importantly, what's your next best action? And when are you going to take it?
The game is on. We hope you play hard, compete fairly, and stay on the court. Got next?